right. Hey, parents, welcome to our Wednesday Lives, where we talk about all things nature. We talk about getting kids outside. We talk about why it's important to get our kids outside. We talk about nature itself and the science behind nature. We talk about learning outside and learning STEM outside. And today we're changing it up just a little bit. I've got a few stories to share for you guys. And in return, I would love to hear your stories as well. So in this group, and as we're talking, I'm going to kind of pull this up and make sure that we are live and things are going well. In this group, we believe something strongly, right? We're all here in this group because we believe that a nature-centric childhood is the best type of childhood for our kids. It sets them up for success in the future. It makes them happier. It makes them healthier. It makes them smarter. It actually gives them a STEM advantage, right? And this is something that we truly believe in this group, and it's part of why we get our kids outside, why we think it's so incredibly important. Here's the thing. It's not always easy, right? As parents, we all struggle with different areas of this. For some of us, it's just the logistics of getting outside, especially if younger kids. The logistics of getting out the door can be really, really overwhelming. I've struggled with this. I struggled with it. I don't anymore, but I struggled with that for years. Screens are a huge issue. How do we get kids off the screens? And how do we do it without them throwing a fit or fighting us on it? And that is an issue that literally almost every single parent in this group faces. And what about learning outside? That is something the vast majority of parents struggle with as well, right? How do we engage them in learning outside? What do we help them learn about? If we don't know anything about nature ourselves, how can we teach our kids? And so we all kind of struggle with different things, right? And it looks differently for each of us. But here's the thing, is that it's so incredibly important to know that you're not the only one, right? You're not the only one that's struggling. You're not the only one that has a story. And we want to be able to kind of come together and share these stories and ask these questions. So today, I'm actually pulling up my notes right here. Today, I'm going to share my story with you and how I came to the place that I am now. And I would love to hear your story. So here's really what I want to ask you. And you can type this down in the comments below. You can start a new post in the Facebook group. You can send us an email, whatever works easiest for you. But my question is for you, what was that turning point that made you decide, all right, a nature-based childhood is the most important for my kids? And then question number 2, what are you still struggling with? What's not quite working that you need some help with? So again, I want to tell you my story because I have the perfect background for getting kids outside and learning about nature. That is what I do. That is what I studied. And I still had a really, really hard time getting my kids outside for years. And I struggled with it for years. And that's why I want to share this story with you. And it's because I know if I'm struggling, then there's so many other moms out there that are struggling too. But at the end of the day, we know it's important and we show up here because we want to make that change. So here's how my story goes. This is about, close to 10 years ago now. So I just finished my PhD in biology, and I was teaching biology classes at a Tier 1 university. So do you remember those large stadium-style lecture halls that were full of hundreds of students and a teeny tiny professor at the bottom of the stage? Well, that was me. And when I wasn't teaching, I was researching and publishing on how kids connect to nature, what experiences they need, and at what ages, and so that they grow into adults who actually care about the natural world around them. And I was also a mom. I had one baby from my body. We also had a foster baby. And up until that point, I just dreamed about the type of nature mom that I was going to be, right? My kids are getting outside every day. They're learning hands-on science outside. My imaginary kids, of course, were respectful, always willing to learn, didn't have any issues with screens, right? And then I actually had them and got a really big slice of humble pie. And we all go through that to some extent, right? Parenting is a humbling experience. So I remember sitting down one day at the park with my kids. I was exhausted. I was grumpy. I had just snapped at them. It had taken us 20 minutes just to get out the door. Getting shoes on was a huge struggle. And just getting out the door into the park was a big deal. And I had downloaded this really fun activity. But by the time we got to the park, I had no desire to do it. I just wanted to sit there and just disengage, right? And I remember thinking, how in the world is it this hard? This is what I've been researching for years. I've even worked as a rock climbing guide. I was an outdoor guide for years. I know how to get people outside and I know how to connect people to nature. But actually doing it with my own kids in my own family was so much harder than I thought it would be. And, I was sitting there at the park and I just let that guilt just sit deep in my gut, right? I had yelled at them about putting on shoes. And, so I started thinking, I was like, what is my attitude doing to our relationship? Not just now when they're young, but if I continue this, what's it going to do later on? That day was the first day that week that we had been to the park. And it was really because I had let screens take over our lives. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, if screens is already this prominent and they're this young, then are they going to grow up to be sedentary, overweight, and depressed? Am I squashing their creativity and their imagination? Because this is the age when they should be outside playing and entertaining themselves. And instead, we're watching, TV shows and movies. And just I sat there. I let the guilt and the shame just sit there. And I remember, tears were just falling down my cheeks. And I'm just thinking about it. And, I felt nauseated. And what's going through my mind is I was like, were they going to have the type of childhood that they deserved? Were they going to have the type of childhood that they needed? I felt like the worst mom ever, and they deserved someone better. It was like mom guilt at the ultimate, right? And we all do this as moms. We all end up in the park crying. We all end up on the kitchen floor crying and eating ice cream. We all end up, in our beds at night, sobbing into our pillow because of the guilt that we feel, right? And so I didn't want it to be that way. So as I'm sitting there, I asked myself, all right, now what is it that I actually want for my kids? And honestly, the answer came pretty easy. I wanted them to have a good childhood that set them up for a great future. And from all the research that I'd spent the last decade doing, I knew that nature was an essential part of childhood development. And if I wanted to get serious about giving them the best possible childhood, the childhood that they deserved and needed, that I need to start getting them outside regularly and learning about the world around them. So what do we all do when we finally have those realizations, right? We make a plan. So this is what I did. I sat down and I made a plan. And this plan was based on the research that I've been doing during my doctoral work, along with what I thought would actually work as a busy mom, because all the people doing the research, a lot of them don't even have kids, right? And so a lot of these things aren't realistic. So I'm like, right, what works with the research? What works being a busy mom? And I knew that I needed to make nature time a priority in our lives, just like things like soccer practice and piano lessons and robotics club, all these other things, and nature had to become a priority too. And I knew that I needed a good curriculum to help them learn about nature in our own backyards, because that was a huge piece. The learning piece is so much bigger than most of us assume. And so here's the thing. As I started implementing this new plan, I had a few speed bumps along the way. Well, maybe more than a few, right? Each of the nature-based curriculum that I purchased for my family was not a good fit. Some were simply too long and complicated. I am a mom. I like efficiency and I like things being effective. And if they're not either one of those things, then things get boggled in my brain and I have a hard time moving forward. Many of the curriculum that we purchased were not written for kids of different ages. It was written for a third grader or a fifth grader or a kindergartner or a freshman in high school. And my kids are 4 years apart. I need to be able to get outside with all the kids together, learn with all the kids together, and each kid walk away with something of their own that they've learned, so that they feel accomplished and so that we walk away all learning something new. So I needed something that worked with different ages. And also, most of the nature-based curriculum, if you guys have searched for this online, you'll find that it's literature-based. And that's great. But I'm a scientist. I needed something that incorporated STEM. And the ones that I found that were readily available that incorporated STEM, honestly, they taught bad science. And I'm a scientist. I can tell you in a heartbeat if a curriculum is good or not for giving kids a STEM advantage. And this particular one was teaching really bad science skills. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to put that aside. So I spent literally years, okay, guys, years going through different curricula and programs that I had purchased that weren't a good fit for my family. And top it all off, there's no accountability. I was on my own for everything. So not only am I a scientist, so I have a background in biology, so I can teach my kids outside. Not only was I a rock climbing guide, so I have the ability to get people outside, but I was still struggling, right? And I needed accountability. And I think that's really important to know that as parents, we aren't weak. We aren't lacking. It's really kind of a mindset thing as well as an accountability thing. And I didn't have any either one of those pieces. So During those years, while I was really struggling and I was trying to figure out how to make all this come together, that's when I figured out exactly what I needed to connect my kids to nature. Not just what the research said was important, but what actually worked from a practical standpoint for a busy parent. And I knew I needed to get them outside regularly. I needed to teach them about nature in our own backyards. That's really, really important. They need to know something about local nature. I need to make it personal for them because here's the thing. If you don't make it personal in the beginning, they're going to grow up to be teenagers that aren't connected to nature, and they're not going to even want to get outside with you. You have to make it personal for them. You have to make it something that they are motivated by, they have ownership over, and that they are engaged in. So making it personal is huge. And then, of course, I needed accountability, right? Because without it, I kept falling off the wagon. So I created a program, Nature Matters Academy, that had all the things that were not available on the market, the things that I knew I needed in order to be successful for doing this with my kids, right? What I knew that they needed to connect to nature and to give them an academic advantage and really be successful in this journey of creating this legacy for our kids, of making a better childhood for them. So here's the thing. When I first started the journey, I knew I wasn't giving my kids the experiences that they needed to have a happy and healthy childhood that set them up for a great future. But after creating Nature Matters Academy for my own kids, this was all for my own children, one thing I know now without a doubt is that I'm giving my kids the right experiences in order to create a great childhood, one full of exploration, discovery, and creativity by getting them outside and connected to nature. They'll become the people they were always meant to be because I have the skills and the confidence to guide them along the way. I believe that nature makes our kids happier, healthier, and smarter while also building family relationships. And I believe that the best place for kids to learn about nature is at home. And guess what? The best person to teach them about nature is you. They don't get a lot of this in school. Some curricula may have it, some may not. Some curricula teaches good things, some may not. The best person to teach them about nature is you, and the best place to learn it is at home. So here is what I would love. I see quite a few guys in here commenting, which is great. So one thing I would love is I would love for you to comment below and tell us a little bit about your story. So again, what was that pivotal moment that was like, nature is absolutely essential for my kids to have the best childhood possible? And then number two, tell us a little bit about what that struggle was for you and how you got over it. Or if you're still in the struggle, that's okay. Tell us about that because we would love to be able to connect with you. I think sharing stories is so incredibly important. We had the opportunity to talk to a wonderful family a few days ago, and they have teenagers, and a lot of what they want for their kids, that connection to nature and being outside together as a family and developing those relationships, got kind of lost along the way. And it's because it wasn't a priority. And now the parents are making it a priority, and they're making that shift. But it's a big shift now. Whereas if you start it when they're younger, it's a much smaller shift at a smaller scale. And it's a lot easier to keep that momentum as you go throughout childhood. So again, in the comments below, or you can create a new post in the group, whatever that looks like to you. But tell us why nature is like a central part of your kid's childhood, why you make it a central part of your kid's childhood. Because let's be honest, it's a purposeful decision now as parents. It's no longer something that kids just do. What kids just do these days is they're on screens and they're on games. But if we're getting our kids outside, this is a purposeful decision on our part. So why do you do that? And then also, where were your struggles and how did you overcome those? Please share those with us. We would love to know. And if you need any help along the way, we can certainly help you. So we have our ebook, which is Reuniting Kids with Nature, how nature makes kids happier, healthier, and smarter. And if that's a resource that you would enjoy, I'll leave the link above. You can purchase it on our website. And essentially, it's like the getting started guide, right, for connecting your kids to nature. It's all about, number one, why it's important. We actually share the research on why it's important. We talk about how to actually do it. It's full of checklists and all kinds of good stuff just to get you out the door. It talks about where to go, what to do. It includes activities. It's a great jump start. So if you're in that space where you know that nature is the best childhood for your kids, you're not exactly sure how to get started, then this ebook is the best starting place for you. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we look forward to hearing your stories. All right. Have a good one.